Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have a devotion. We're going to finish Daniel 11, verses 40 through 45. Our list of fulfilled prophecies, chunk by chunk, is getting so long. And it's because I wanted to go slowly through and savor it all. But now, in the last verses, I believe it's becoming apocalyptic. And so we're no longer adding to our list of prophecies that are fulfilled, but I'll still give you kind of a quick summary of what I see happening in the text. Here's Daniel 11, beginning in verse 40. At that time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, but the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, horsemen, and many ships. Okay, do the basic geography here. He's being attacked from the south and the north simultaneously. This is the, not sure if I'm supposed to pronounce it the way that Edward Cullen did in Christopher Nolan's movie Tenet, pincer, or if that's what we who were born in the South call the weaponized appendage of a crab, pincher. Either way, you get the idea. He's waging a multi-theater war, a multi-front war. It's his own battle of the bulge, but he gets out of it. He will invade countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land. That's Israel. And many will fall. But these will escape from his power: Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of the Ammonites. Why these nations? Why do they escape his power? Because these are historic enemies, albeit distant cousins of the Israelites, and enemies of God. Edom is the nation that is particularly despised by God. And there's a book that explains why. It's the book of Obadiah in the Bible. This is the nation for whom Esau was the progenitor. His fraternal twin brother and younger twin at that is Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. And by order of primogeniture, it said that the older one would be in charge, but so that God's purposes in election might stand before the twins were even born, had done anything right or wrong. It was decided, it was foretold that the older would serve the younger. That's where this nation came from. The enemy nation, the devil's campaign through the Antichrist, has no beef with Edom. Look at this next one, Moab. Moab was another sort of like distant cousin of Israel, brought about by an act of incest, worshippers of Molech and Chemosh. However, it is from the nation of Moab that we get the matriarch Ruth, who contributed to the genealogy of Jesus. See our series, Love Story, verse by verse through it. My favorite book of the Bible, by the way. And the prominent people of the Ammonites, another historic enemy of Israel. So he's invading. He's got this pincher move. He retaliates and overcompensates and takes out enemies, takes over Israel, leaves Edom, Moab, and the Ammonites alone. Sometimes the enemy gives away his hand by strategically leaving out his own people in an attack. You can tell who belongs to him by who's not catching heat. He will not extend his power against the countries, and not even the land of Egypt will escape. Sorry, he will extend his power against the countries, and not even the land of Egypt will escape. Okay, so we've just broadened the geographic scope pretty significantly. After this next verse, I'll show you on a map what we're talking about. He will get control over the hidden treasures of gold and silver and over all the riches of Egypt. Can you imagine how much wealth there is in Egypt? I know that their gross domestic product is pretty abysmal. I think it's pretty remarkable too, by the way, that their former slaves, the Israelites, have a GDP that eclipses theirs. But can you imagine how many artifacts they have there? The Libyans and Cushites will also be in submission. So he takes over Libya, Egypt, and this could be interpreted as Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia. So let's look at the geography of what's implied by this. I give you planet Earth. All right, let's zoom in. First, just for perspective, I'm right there. See that? Hey, Mom and Dad, down here in Pensacola. What's up, my friends in Nashville? Love you guys. Orlando, we miss you guys. Love you. Okay, let's go across the ocean. And there's Italy. There's Turkey. Turkey, eh? Bought my wife a beautiful pair of earrings while I was flying through Istanbul. And now, here's where this is all taking place. Okay, he seems to be based out here. But then when he ignores the enemies of Israel that are over here, I think Moab was right about here. And this is modern day Jordan or Amman. And like they just kind of have no beef with the Antichrist, it seems. So it would suggest then, if my theory that the Antichrist, the beast, is a Muslim leader, believed to be the 12th Imam, and he's sort of embraced by Jews at first, that he ends up going homicidally anti-Semitic in the last days, and then the Muslims are kind of on board with that. And that's if my conjecture is accurate. I don't hang my hat on that. It's just a theory that's possible. And then we see Libya named in this text, and Egypt, and then here's Sudan, and South Sudan, and Ethiopia. This makes me concerned because it's very close to, I've got friends here in Kenya, and I have friends here in Seattle who are from Eritrea. There's an Eritrean church that I've worked with, and I did some training for their pastor. So pray for the Eritreans, as these events of Daniel 11 one day unfold. Look at how vast the Antichrist's coalition expands. I mean, he's based out of here, and then boom, he encompasses all this. And if my interpretation of Ezekiel and its description of Gog and Magog is accurate, then he's already got allies from all over here, but he's getting attacked from the north and from the south. Maybe the Saudis and the Turks invade, but his response is to just explode his territory all the way down here. And this is going to prompt a massive war. But reports from the east and the north will terrify him, and he will go out with great fury to annihilate and completely destroy many. All right. So if I'm reading my map right, it looks like he's got enemies from, possibly this direction, and then also further from the north. Maybe the Turks have Europeans on their side, and he will pitch his royal tents between the sea and the beautiful holy mountain, but he will meet his end with no one to help him. So when you set up the royal tent, it's just like in the movie Napoleon, just like in the movie Gladiator. You set up a tent because you're on site for battle. And it's between the sea, I believe that's the Mediterranean Sea, and the beautiful holy mountain, I believe that's Jerusalem. If I'm right, that would put his base of operations like here. And it's likely that this is where he makes his last stand on Mount Megiddo, which is where the Battle of Armageddon takes place. So that's the end of Daniel 11. Here's one last flyover of the prophecies that we've seen fulfilled so far in this text. If you're watching this on video, you can see all of the intrigue between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies is foretold. The rebellion of the Maccabees is prophesied. The rise of Rome becomes prominent the deeper you get into the text. And then in describing the terror of Antiochus Epiphanes IV and the abomination of desolation, which Jesus speaks about as a direct comparison to his own apocalyptic prophecy, we'd make a transition and we start talking about the Antichrist. All right. So yesterday's devotion, we said there are no more prophecies fulfilled because these are prophecies that describe the end of days. And now the same is true for verses 40 through 45. Again, none. But here's a quick recap. These are about the Antichrist's victory over a multi-front pincer move from his enemies to the north and south. And so in response, he sweeps like a flood, see verse 40, to invade Israel, which is the beautiful land in verse 45. Conquers Egypt and Libya and Sudan/Ethiopia. These are the Cushites of verse 43. And then he's frightened by news of an attack coming from the east and the north, according to verse 44. So he goes on a genocidal rampage, targeting the Jewish people. See also Zechariah 13, 8 and 9. Israel then becomes his base of operations, and he sets his royal tents up at Mount Megiddo between the Mediterranean Sea and the mountain of Jerusalem. And this is where Revelation 15, 13 through 16 takes place. According to Zechariah 14:2, the nations show up to wage war. And that's when Israel will finally call upon Jesus as the Messiah to return, thereby fulfilling Matthew 23, 37 through 39. And then I think, is it Hosea chapter 5 as well, that the return of Jesus is predicated only by the people of Israel calling upon him as the Messiah? There's nothing that is, there's nothing that, like, what is it, dispensationalists would say is necessary for the rapture to occur. But one precondition for the return of Jesus is Israel doing this, fulfilling Matthew 23, 37 through 39, and then defeating the beast. That's what is encompassed within verse 45. So, wow. One last flyover of everything that we've learned from Daniel chapter 11. It is really amazing to behold. If you want this as a written resource, come and ask me for it. It may make a comeback as we work our way through Revelation, because I also just spent a lot of time on it. and I want it to bear fruit. I want it to be used more. All right. This is the word of God. It has accurately predicted this full history in the time of the Persians through the rise of Rome. And it has more to say about our world in the future. The word of God is simply true. Place your faith in him and believe. Stand by the word of God, even if it's unpopular among other Christians, because God wins in the end.